Why don't you ask the pastor to pray, since he says he can cure people with prayers? Why don't you go to him? But he could cure them anyway. He would pull out his coca, start chewing it, and sit down like us here now. Then he would swallow his tobacco. Meanwhile, I would watch him and ask him what he was doing. The first time I saw him cure, he said, "Very well, bring me the sick baby." First, he touched the baby, then took his pulse. "Ah, I see. He's in a bad way. The illness is here." Then he started sucking the spot. Suction noise. Then he spat it out like this. Pfft. Then again, and a third time. Pfft. There, very good. Then he told the mother, "Something has shocked this little one, so here is an herb to bathe him. After that, let him rest." The next day, one could already see an improvement in the baby's health, so I took a liking to it and decided to learn. Oh, the first time I had tobacco, I didn't sleep. How old were you? I was 8 years old. I thought tobacco was sweet, but it was so bitter that I couldn't even swallow it. My uncle said, "That's the secret of tobacco." Then he showed me everything. He gave me a tobacco gourd. Little by little, I learned to take it and to resist. Fairly quickly, I stopped vomiting. Did your uncle also teach you how to use ayahuasca? No, I learned that later with my father-in-law. Over the following months, I recorded approximately 20 hours on the meanders of Carlos's life. He spoke Spanish better than anybody in Kirishari. In the past, he had taught it to other Ashaninka in the Adventist school. However, his grammar was flexible, and he talked with unexpected rhythms, punctuating his sentences with pauses, gestures, and noises that completed his vocabulary nicely, but that are difficult to put into written English. Furthermore, his narrative style varied from a first-person account to the commentary of a narrator who also plays the roles of the characters. This is no doubt more appropriate for oratory or radio plays than for a text. By taping Carlos's life story, I was not trying to establish the point of view of a typical Ashaninka. Rather, I was trying to grasp some specifics of local history by following the personal trajectory of one man. In particular, I was interested in questions of territory in the Pichis Valley. Who owned which lands and since when? Who used which resources? As it happens, the overall history of the Ashaninka in the 20th century is closely defined by the progressive expropriation of their territory by outsiders, as Carlos's life story reveals. Carlos's birthplace, the Pyrenees Valley, was the first Ashaninka region to undergo colonization. By 1940, the majority of indigenous lands in the area had already been confiscated. 10 years later, Carlos, the young orphan, had followed the mass migration of the Pyrenees Ashaninka toward the Pichis Valley, where the forests were still free of colonists and diseases. After living 26 years in this new homeland, Carlos had been elected to the presidency of the Congress of the Association of the Indigenous Communities of the Pichis, ACONAP. The goal of this organization was to defend indigenous lands from a new onslaught of colonization. Carlos was forced to abandon his position after 4 years when he was bitten by a snake. At this point, he retired to Kirishari to cure himself with ayahuasca and other plants. When I appeared 5 years later, he was living like a retired politician, satisfied with the tranquility, but nostalgic for yesteryear's struggles. He did not seem displeased at the idea of confiding his memoirs to a visiting anthropologist. Over the course of our conversations, I often asked Carlos about the places he had lived, directing the conversation toward the solid ground of social geography. But he would regularly answer in ways that pointed toward shamanism and mythology. For example,